everybody, I'm Stacy. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, then I welcome you in. If you're coming back, then I'm so glad to see you. I was just wondering, what are some things that you guys would like to talk about? What are things that would interest you? I was thinking maybe we could review some NCLEX questions, which I would have to research because it's been a long time since I've taken the NCLEX. So I thought we could just talk about that. Some good tips and tricks for the NCLEX, even though I have not taken an NCLEX in many, many years now. I think best practice is to get yourself one study guide that you trust. Usually there's a program. I think I had to take a HESI test when I was in nursing school. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. When I became an LPN and when I became an RN, I took the NCLEX both times. And I've heard a lot of things about the NCLEX recently, so I guess we could talk about the NCLEX a little bit. If you like what you see here, like, subscribe, and follow for more. So you've gone through nursing school and you passed your class and you got your certificate, you got your degree. What's next? Well, your NCLEX is next. And every state differs of the fee, I believe. It's probably different a little bit in every state, but every state you have to take the NCLEX. Maybe the fee's not different. Maybe I'm just talking out of my rear. I don't know what the fee is for the NCLEX anymore, but I know LPNs and RNs, LVNs, have to take an NCLEX, pass the boards to become a nurse. So you got your degree, that doesn't give you the right to practice. Now you have to pass your boards. Some things that I did when I went to take my LPN boards were that I made flashcards, I did study tests, I did all of the things when I became an LPN. And I remember just studying so hard. I played headphones in my ears of all the things that I was going to have to study. I thought I had figured out. I had a study guide. I believe Elsevier was the study guide that I purchased, and maybe the second time it was through Lippincott. I am not sure. It's been a long time and I don't even have those books anymore. But when I went to take my boards, I went to a testing center, and when I became an LPN, it was a long time ago, and you didn't get your results right away. You had to wait weeks to find out if you passed or failed. And I will tell you that I left there thinking I had failed. And I don't know if you've truly taken the NCLEX if you don't think you failed it. It's one of the most challenging, psychologically intense tests that I think we have to take as nurses. And if you didn't do that, you can't call yourself a nurse. I don't think anybody went into the NCLEX feeling like they did great. I think I questioned as to whether I passed both times when I took my LPN boards and when I took my RN boards. When I took my LPN boards, I cried. I just knew I failed. And getting that letter in the mail, because it was a letter that came in the mail that said passed, it was like a weight lifted off of my shoulders. But I will tell you, there were questions on there that I didn't study for and that maybe weren't at an LPN level. So I'm sure that's changed now. I don't know what the test looks like these days. Like I said, it's been a long time since I took boards, and I am hearing that you can take your boards at home through a proctored test. And I'm not thinking that that's such a bad thing. Because I've taken proctored tests through the university online that I attend. And during those proctored tests, I am on camera and I have to show that my area is clean and free of papers, books. I can't have my phone in the screen. I think it would be very hard to cheat on your NCLEX through a proctored live exam. And it only allows you a certain amount of time to answer those questions. And if you don't know those answers and you're researching for the answer, it's going to take more time to answer those questions. And the test will shut off on you, I believe. So I've taken open book tests also that are proctored, where they allow you to have notes and they allow you to have your book, but they don't want you to use your phone, and they don't want you to, they want to see the notes that you're using when you show what you're doing. I'm not opposed to this idea of taking a proctored test at home if you have challenges with transportation and getting to take that test or getting to a testing center, because I know that sometimes it takes a while to get to that. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I feel like taking the test at home is still just as nerve-wracking nerve-wracking as taking it with somebody standing behind you, not really watching you. You're on a video when you take the test in a testing center as well. I suppose if you're not an honest person and you're going to find a way to cheat, you're going to find a way to cheat. And maybe that would be the drawback. And I can see where people would feel angry or not like this idea. But we take proctored exams in our home for university level classes on a regular basis in this era of technology. And I have taken those tests, and having even an open book isn't a guarantee that you're going to pass something, right? I have made mistakes even with my book open. If you know the material, you know it. If you don't, you don't. That's something that I would pound home to you too, as somebody who is taking nursing classes or considering it. When I took my ADN, when I took my RN, I graduated with my associate's degree in nursing, and I went to take my boards. Technology had advanced a little bit, and they had changed the format of the NCLEX by the time I became an RN. And one of the things that they changed was they went to critical thinking based questions rather than regurgitation. And I think maybe some of the things that we did in the LPN NCLEX were more like clinical book knowledge rather than application. And so when I became an RN, they were just beginning to put critical thinking heavily and application heavily into the NCLEX. And I did study, but I will be honest, I didn't study as hard to take my NCLEX for the RN as I did for my LPN. I think it was harder to take my LPN boards. I'm going to be honest. I think my LPN boards were harder and messed with my head a lot more than becoming an RN. But I will say, I went to my testing center, I took my boards, the tests shut off early at a certain number of questions. You could either get the long test or the short test. Either that meant you were failing or you were definitely guaranteed to pass. But I don't know if there's really an algorithm that says you're going to pass or fail based on the number of questions that you get, because I literally was in there less than 15 minutes taking my test. I am a fast test taker. I don't monkey around on taking tests. I don't second guess myself, and I don't go back to the question. And that is my personal style. I think you need to know your style of learning and know your style of test taking. Some people have a lot of test anxiety, and I don't know how to get you through that. I do not like taking tests, but I think that speaking in front of people is more challenging for me than sitting in front of a test trying to decide, do I think this is the answer or not? Either I answer it 100% wrong or I answer it 100% right, and I know that there's no in between. The thing about the NCLEX is you know that information. You've been going to school for it. It's in there. Trust yourself. If you did good in school, if you did good in clinicals, I have seen so few people fail. Most of the people that I went to school with, I don't think any of us failed our NCLEX in the program that I went through. And it was a rigorous nursing program. We started out with 80 students in our class, and I think we ended up with less than 40 who graduated. And that program was designed to weed you out. You had to get certain scores. You know, it's hard enough passing the program. It's a rigorous program to become a nurse, right? The clinicals, the expectations, you can only miss one clinical. You have to pass with a 95% on your second math test. You have to know these things. They want you to know these things because they're not going to graduate you if you don't. And also they're doing mock NCLEX testing usually in these programs. I don't know if programs have changed from that format, but when I was going through my associate's degree nursing, we took tests that were mock NCLEX tests that were a good indicator of whether we would pass or fail. And to graduate, we had to pass those mock NCLEX tests in addition to our clinicals and classes and math tests and other things that were expected of us. I remember that first semester you had to pass with a certain score on a certain math test, and the second time you took it, you had to almost be excellent at it. You couldn't, a 95%. And the number of questions, it was, if you missed more than 2 questions, you're not passing it with a 95. So you really had to know what you were doing to pass those classes that I took. And I went to a community college. I did not go to a university for my ADN. I went to a community college, and it was rigorous. It was rigorous. So when I went to take my NCLEX, I did study a little bit for my RN NCLEX, but I didn't study as hard as for my LPN. I think, I did some flashcards. I had a book that I bought that was supposed to help you with the NCLEX, but I'm not a heavy studier. Either you know the information that you've been learning or you don't. And when I realized that the test was going to be based on application, I knew that reading those books, the informational books about it, I have said this before, but for me, reading nursing manuals is like reading stereo instructions. I learn really well from my teachers teaching in front of the class and writing things down. And so hearing and doing are big ways that I learn, and reading, I do learn from that. But if it's not interesting, I will remember what I read, but I'm not going to read it as easily because I will get bored and it will be challenging for me to read. I feel like I had to force myself to read in nursing school, and that's a me problem. If you're a great reader and you're a great studier, you'll do great on the NCLEX. We can do NCLEX review questions. I can find some and we can talk about them. But I think the biggest takeaway is that you have to believe in yourself. Either you know that information or you don't. Absolutely buy yourself one study guide. Don't buy a bunch. If you want to have a study group with some people and review that information, I think there were some ladies that did that in my class, that they got together after they graduated and went over the test questions a few times to see if they had that knowledge. But even when I went to take my NCLEX as an RN, the test shut off. I was in there less than 15 minutes. It felt like I drove more mileage than I spent time taking my test. And I got a question that was something I don't remember covering in class. And that question really messed with my mind. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fail the NCLEX because I don't know the answers to these questions. But you do know the answers to these questions. You do know how to prioritize and how to think critically. That is something that you're taught to do as a nurse, even though you really learn it when you do it as a nurse in the field, or when you're working as a nurse, you really begin to hone those skills. It's a lot of information shoved into your brain during your program, and it's information overload sometimes, and you're going to go into a specialty and specialize yourself a lot of times. You're going to find an area where you fit, what's your niche in nursing, and you're going to go on into that and you're going to learn more about that. And some of that information that you learned in nursing school is going to dump right out of your brain, but it's in there. It's in there. And if you study and you have confidence in yourself, you can take your NCLEX and you can pass. Just know it's about critical thinking. What is most urgent versus what is least urgent. It's about prioritizing. And those are things that you do need to know as a nurse for application. When you're in a nursing role, you do need to be able to prioritize what's most urgent versus what's least urgent. And that is really where the NCLEX was focused whenever I was taking my NCLEX. And I would imagine that that's still important in nursing application. There are so many right answers, but one answer is the most correct. And I think that still applies. I'm not 100% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you'd like to talk about it more in the comments, I'd love to hear more. Tell me about your experiences taking the NCLEX. Tell me about the things that make you feel challenged about taking the NCLEX. I would love to hear about it. And if you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. I thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.